FBI Director James Comey was a hot topic today at the White House briefing, which just wrapped up about, what, half an hour ago, an hour and a half ago? Press Secretary Sean Spicer saying President Trump wants to move on and focus on what's best for the American people. But the president did anything but move on. He launched a preemptive strike at Comey this morning, tweeting, quote, "James Comey better hope that there are no tapes of our conversations before he starts leaking to the press." We've got congressmen from both sides of the aisle to give us their take on the controversy and whether it leaves what many voters want, and that's tax reform, health care reform, infrastructure, and whether it leaves them stuck in the quicksand. Joining us exclusively, Republican Representative Keith Rothfus of Pennsylvania and Democratic Representative Brad Sherman of California. Congressman Rothfus, let's begin with you. Open the Capitol doors just a crack for our viewers, if you would. What are you and fellow Republicans really saying about this Comey situation and the president's tweets that keep it alive, just as he said he wants to move on?
Well, one of the things we're saying is we're hoping we can get back to the big issues that President Trump won the election on: tax reform, health care reform, regulatory reform, getting this economy rolling again, because people have had their incomes moving sideways for 15 years. People want jobs. They want to see increases in their wages. With respect to Director Comey, this has been a long time coming. There were issues last year. There were issues in July with Director Comey's press conference.
Nobody's
there were issues immediately before the election.
Okay,
frankly, this is yet one more mess that President Obama left in President Trump's lap. This probably should have been taken care of in December.
Let me jump in. We're not here today to argue whether Comey should have been fired. What is done, definitely. We accept that. But when Sean Spicer says, well, let's move on to things that you are absolutely right. Everybody wants to see their taxes go down, more money in their pockets, and their wages go up. The president then tweets something that is very much a warning, certainly it appears, that keep it alive.
Well, every 3 or 4 days, it seems the president does some tweet that captures the media's attention, and the media falls right into it and reports on the tweets. We got to stay focused. We got to stay focused on what this election was about last year and get this economy rolling again.
Okay, so I want viewers to know this, and by the way, we will get to Congressman Sherman in a moment fully. We want to be we're keeping this very fair and balanced. Let me just ask, or let our viewers know something. You are a cancer survivor, Representative, and I'm so glad to have you here because you voted for the health care plan, and I just want to ask you, do you feel it protects those with pre-existing conditions and things like cancer?
Absolutely. This is a critical issue. Everybody has their own health history. There are other members of Congress who have had cancer. Cancer has been everywhere. People have family issues. We have family issues within our family with respect to health care. We want to make sure that those individuals who have pre-existing conditions are going to have access to coverage, affordable coverage. The problem with Obamacare right now is that coverage is not so affordable, even for people with pre-existing conditions. We had upwards of 53% increases in premiums here in Pennsylvania last year. We have jurisdictions across the country that are threatened with having no insurance in the exchange next year. Where are they going to go for health insurance? The legislation we passed offers the opportunity to move away from Washington mandates towards more flexibility, more choice, lowering premiums, while preserving protections for those with pre-existing conditions in a multi-layer fashion. I
got to get you on this trade deal before we go to Representative Brad Sherman, and that is that the president struck a trade deal, or at least it was announced through Wilbur Ross, the Commerce Secretary, that will open the floodgates, or at least open them slightly wider for American beef exports and real fair trade, or at least fairer trade. How will Pennsylvania benefit from that?
Oh, I understand. I saw the headlines talk about some agricultural issues that are going to be helpful to Pennsylvania farmers. That's a good thing. Obviously, there are much broader issues with China, with state-owned industries, the issues that we're dealing with, having to go back time and again to enforce our trade laws against what we perceive to be dumping from time to time by China. This is probably just the tip of the iceberg with this trade deal. There's a lot that needs to get done to get China to get fair trade, because we have real issues with what China's been doing.
Speaking of fair, thank you, Congressman. Fair and balanced, we bring in Democratic Representative Brad Sherman of California. Congressman, let's stick with the trade deal here. As a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, look at the pact and tell me what you think it really does. I mean, the president and his team were very clear. There's no quid pro quo. China will do this trade deal, and you'll help us with North Korea. But do you feel it's a precursor to at least some more assistance from China on North Korea?
This is a complete capitulation to China. Trump has betrayed working families. He told them he would deal with the trade deficit. He told them that he would identify China as a trade manipulator. And then he signs this sick chicken deal. Literally, sick and harmful chicken will be imported to the United States, unsafe for consumers, as part of this deal.
What about
also,
our beef going there and helping with the trade deficit, though? You say it's a capitulation, but it looks like America's getting a good end of at least part of the deal. I agree with you on the Chinese chicken. I'm like, what are they doing over there? We can't regulate them. But does it help U.S. exporters?
The beef part of this deal might be good, but it's an outrage that we would call that a concession from China. Our beef is much safer than their beef. They stopped it in 2003 on the ridiculous assumption that somehow our beef would make their people unhealthy. You know that's false. I know it's false. It's an outrage, and any president should have immediately put huge sanctions on Chinese imports until they eliminated that outrage. Instead, we're told we got to let in sick chicken so that they can eat good beef. That's not. And then the LNG part of this is going to raise gas prices, utility costs for everybody watching us right now.
Well, you know, we have to see how that bears out. But speaking of everybody watching right now, I would like you to just answer this because you're on the House Financial Services Committee. The president has floated the idea of bringing back that Depression-era rule, Glass-Steagall, which separates banks from having, you know, their consumer banking arm from their investment banking arm. Would you be supportive of that?
I would be, but Sanders and Sherman have a better deal, and that is to break up those banks that are over 2% of the GDP in size. It's not whether you mix, you know, a small credit union that also sells auto insurance is not a risk to the economy. But once you get an institution so large that if they have a problem, they can call the White House and say, you better bail us out or we're taking the whole economy down with us, that's an institution that should be broken up. And we know that when a protozoa reaches a certain stage, it's able to divide into two healthy organisms. I'm sure the geniuses on Wall Street can divide these giant banks into two or three healthy institutions.
Well, I would have thought you'd love Glass-Steagall coming back, but please join us again, Congressman. I do appreciate you being here. Congressman Brad Sherman of California, and our thanks to Congressman Keith Rothfus of Pennsylvania.